Hello everyone. Today we're going to be focusing on something a little bit different. We're going to be focusing on Pluto and Aquarius, and we're going to be focusing on battle magic and protecting from battle magic. All right. Now, why would I bring this information at this time in this current place and moment? There's lots of changes going on in the world, and it is, in my opinion, important that witches and practitioners and people who practice know how to equip themselves against things that we can't see spiritually, things that maybe we don't know where they're coming from or why they're there, and also to be able to defend yourself and protect yourself in the spirit before something gets to the earth, before something happens in the physical is, in my opinion, if you're a practitioner, it's just an important skill to have. It really is. It really is just an important skill to have. That's really true. This episode, this video is going to be linked to a blog that I'm working on right now. I don't have a name for the blog yet, but basically what it goes over is different warcraft strategies or warcraft necessities. For those of you who don't know, I say when I welcome you into the show, my name is Valkyria Verdure, Valkyrie of the Veil. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I suppose that's true. I don't know if I did it earlier. The blog is called Vorder's Guild for a reason, okay? We sit there and we learn about different ways that we can protect ourselves, different ways that we could defend ourselves, different ways that we could rearrange and reorder things so that it works in our benefit and it works for us. So if you are interested in that, also there's going to be email updates and things like that that get sent out on the blog if you are curious. So that's there as a resource if you feel like it's necessary and you would like to receive it. That's also true. So 3 things up we're going to go over: battle magic, protection magic, and Pluto and Aquarius. Thanks for your patience as I return to the internet. I have been sick with the flu for like an entire week now. You can still kind of hear it in my voice. I am still moving slowly today, but I'm feeling good enough to get on and do some work and get some stuff done finally again. So it is what it needed to be. The spirits rarely ever call on me, but when I get called, I'm gonna stand up. We got work to do, and sometimes after that work is done, I need to sit back down and I need to sleep for days at a time, and that was what just happened. That's why they don't call on me very often, is because when they call on me, that's what's up. So I had to sleep it off. I had to sleep it off for like a week now, and you know what? Has it been a week yet? It has. It's been like a week. That's crazy. I feel like I went into a time blip and I came out the other side, and the world is very different now. As someone personally who's ruled by Saturn and ruled by Scorpio, I'm gonna pretty much always be fighting, if I am, with Scorpio, the stinger, and Saturn, the gravity. Fight with time? I'm not gonna fight time, but fight with time, forward together? Sure, yeah, that sounds great. And part of the reason that I fight with Pluto, okay, so let's talk about that. Part of the reason I fight with Pluto, or I have Pluto on my team or I'm on Pluto's team rather, Pluto's a lot bigger and older than I am. Part of that reason is because in every change of season, Pluto, if you have been in the Pluto show, if you have been doing what Pluto needs you to do to grow, Pluto's going to make sure that you get those underworld riches. And if you are going through any sort of battle, any sort of fight, any sort of thing that you have to defend or protect a right, noted, then Pluto, if you are advancing with Pluto or you are having Pluto in the process of what you're doing, there's going to be profit. There's going to be profit. That's one of the things I have in the blog this week, is that if there's war, there's profit. If there's battle, there's profit. So making sure that if you are going into with Mars also, because Mars is one of the rulers of Scorpio. So if you are, and Mars is what we normally think about. That's true. Let's track back. Why am I not focusing on Mars in this video? Because Mars is what we normally think about when it comes to battle and war and strategy and victory. It's great for strategizing. It's great for prioritizing. It's great for, where are the troops moving? When do they need to move? When are we retreating? When are we going home? It's great for those sorts of movements. But if you're working with actual physical sorts of battle magic and you're actually going through something where you would need to fight. Mars is not always going to be the tool that you need. That's true. Mars is not always going to be the tool that you need to get done what you need to get done. Mars has strategy, Mars has victory, Mars has prioritization, but Mars doesn't have the riches necessarily. It has the harvest, love the harvest, love the hard work of the harvest, love the protection of the harvest, love Mars, I really do. When it comes to Pluto though, Pluto's gonna make sure that you're shadowed, it's gonna make sure that you're in the darkness, people are not gonna see you coming, people are gonna get hit pretty hard, and they're probably not gonna realize it until after. That's part of Pluto's work as well. So that's one of the reasons we're sitting with Pluto, is because Pluto energy, or the practices of Pluto, is more of a tool for that attackive position, whereas there's going to be Mars is more of the motion or the trail or the track of where those attacks could happen. It's also going to help you understand where other people are going to trail and track to possibly bring attack to you. So it'll help you understand where the defenses need to be and how do they need to be set up. When it comes to what tools are you using within those different tracks though, yes, Mars can be the prioritizer and the strategizer of what needs to be done and how do we need to defend against what is it that they have on their side. But when it comes to Pluto, those tools are going to make sure that you gain something. They're going to make sure that you profit something. Mars is going to make sure that what you have is already defended. Pluto is going to make sure that you pick up some extra. That's why I fight with Pluto. That is one of the reasons I bring, and I'm also a Scorpio, but that's one of the reasons I recommend to bring in Pluto if there is going to be battle, victory, strategy stuff going on. Interestingly enough, Mars is the ruler of Aries, right? And that's the beginning, let there be light, that's the fight, that's the that sounded like a dog, whatever. It's that energy, it's that energy of the fight. But if you bring in Pluto, that's the strategic, how can I get what I want from this battle? How can I get what I want from this fight? How can I make sure what's mine is mine and that I take what I want? So that's part of Pluto energy. We have Saturn, Aquarius, and we have Uranus, if we're talking about Pluto and Aquarius. So Saturn, let's start with Saturn. The reason that I fight with Saturn is because Saturn is the seat of hierarchy. Saturn is the seat of hierarchy. And so if you are in a battle or a fight, if you have that Saturn in your chart taken care of, and on YouTube, I'll link Saturn videos up here in the corner if you want to check out more about Saturn stuff. But if you're interested more about fighting with Saturn, Saturn's going to make sure that you have the time that you need to make the decisions that you need to make. It's also going to make sure that if you do not have the time that you need, that everything that could defend you, that could protect you, and could direct you is going to be ordered in the way that it needs to be ordered. It's very, in my opinion, unwise to enter any sort of battle or fight territory if you do not have Saturn in order. Because if you do not have Saturn in order and you enter a field or a space where there could be an attack somehow, or you are going to be put under pressure or made uncomfortable, and you are not okay with that, then Saturn is going to let you learn the lesson probably in a more difficult fashion. And so if you have learned the lesson with Saturn beforehand and ordered everything in the way that it needs to be, you have your money in order, you have your finances, you have your insurance, you have your social groups and your friends, which is related to Aquarius, you have your social groups and your friends in order, you have everything in order, you have your house clean, you have, there's so many different ways that this can be applicable. Okay, you have gas in the car if you have a car, making sure that everything that you have around you in your life. Speaking of, I actually probably should get gas in my car, but that Saturn is making sure that you have those boundaries, and it's going to be small little indicators. This is one of the things I love about Saturn when it comes to battle magic and protection magic. Saturn, it's going to let you know small little indicators. So let's talk about how this is applicable to Pluto and Aquarius. Saturn, as being a ruler of Aquarius, Aquarius is about our social groups. It's about our social standings. It's about the rules that we have with each other. Saturn with Capricorn is more about our systems. It's about our structures. It's about hierarchy, government, politics, money, jobs, corporations. It's about those sorts of spaces. Yes, we're involved with people. We're bound to other people in those systems and those structures. But with Aquarius, because that's Capricorn, with Aquarius, it's more about who are you spending your time with and why? It doesn't matter if it's at your work, at your job, with government, politics, whatever. It doesn't matter within those social system structures and hierarchies unless you have made it applicable within your social groups. Do you have a couple of close friends? Do you have a huge group of friends? Do you have the way that I normally work is I have one really good friend over here and I have one really good friend over here, and sometimes I'll have a third really good friend somewhere else. It just depends on, you know, the people that are around me. I'm very, very selective about who I let into my life and why I let them in, because Saturn, if you're paying attention with Saturn and Aquarius and social groups and social spaces, if you're paying attention to what in those social places and spaces actually protects you, what sort of people do you hang around? Let's look at the big picture first, okay? Saturn, as I'm filming this, is still retrograde, so look at the big picture first. Do you agree with the way that that community spends time? Do you agree with the way that that group of people participates in conversation and participates in the way that they treat you and the way that they reach out to you and they hold their boundaries? Do you agree with that? What about some of the bigger picture stuff that's going on in the world right now? Do you agree with the way that that friend group kind of handles their inner workings around some of those bigger things? That's going to be more of the big picture questions to ask yourself. When it comes to small indicators, okay, in the social groups, oh my goodness. When it comes to small indicators in the social groups, Saturn gets so specific. It could be that there's a person who says something to you and you don't realize until a couple of months later, oh, that's what they meant by that. Oh, that is a trigger word for me. And this is how I keep my boundaries with Saturn in the 11th house and Saturn in Aquarius and friend group social spaces. If I realize, that there's a person around me and they have spoken certain words, I've had to learn trigger words, trigger verbs, trigger actions, that it's just this tiny red flag, tiny one. It's the most minuscule, and most people are gonna brush it off and they're gonna be like, oh, they didn't mean anything by it. Oh, they didn't mean to make me feel that way. They didn't mean that. Yes, they did. Actually, yes, they did. They wouldn't have said it if they didn't. Were they joking about it? Oh, well, they still said it in a joke. How do you feel about that? They definitely said it. They definitely meant it. What is it is it the elephant? Hold on. What's that quote? I meant what I said, and I said what I meant, and elephant's faithful 100%. So applicable to Saturn with the 11th house and Aquarius, because if you have any relation, and you know this, you know if you have Saturn in the 11th house, you have Aquarius in the 11th house, you have Capricorn in the 11th house, anything that has Saturn relations to do with, or Saturn and Aquarius, okay, that's also true. It's like small little indicators. People around you are going to give you small little indicators about who they are and what they want and why they want that. I've had to learn many different layers of this as I have been making content online and like doing my thing. It is a very small little, oh, here's a little tiny boundary. Okay, here's a little tiny boundary. Instead of setting up really big boundaries, Saturn will let you know, here's a little tiny one and here's a little tiny one. It's like setting up traps, but you don't actually set them up. People just walk into them. For me, I have certain key indicator words, okay? So like if a person talks about me in a certain way, and what do I mean by key indicator words? Because I don't talk about these key indicator words. It's like they use a specific label for me. Or if they are not just a specific label, if they relate to me in a certain sort of way. Say that someone calls me, here's actually a general example. This is a pretty good general example. If someone calls me a friend, but I have not internally already established that I like this person enough and trust this person enough that I would want to be friends with them, for me, that shows me, oh, they've already assumed. There's an assumption here. And you might be saying, oh, well, that's so harsh. So is Saturn. Saturn is very harsh. So yes, it is. But also, I've learned that this is the sort of protection I need for this sort of work. So There could be somebody who says, oh, like, that's my friend, or we're friends to me, and I haven't already established that I would like to be in a friendship with that person internally. Then I have to go in and kind of check, okay, well, how do I feel about this person? And like, I have to do the internal work. Saturn requires that you check in with yourself. That's true. Check on those internal layers. Okay, how do I feel about this person? Why do I feel this way about this person? Do I want to be friends with them? Do I not want to be friends with them? Why have they said this about me? And then put up boundaries as necessary. But I've learned with that on a personal level, if that happens with me, someone calls me a friend and they're not, we haven't already established that, they just assume that we're friends. Oh no, we're not ever gonna be friends. So sorry. So sorry, we're not ever gonna be friends. You call me your friend and we haven't actually established that we're friends, because then that's a status, that's a title. That puts them in the hierarchy at either an equal position and or they want some sort of power because of you. And Saturn is very related to power. Pluto is very related to power. And that is the bigger picture of why we're working with both of them when it comes to battle magic and Pluto and Aquarius, is because they are both power. One of them takes the power, Pluto takes the power that it wants regardless of the consequence, although you do have to think about that with Pluto because there is always going to be a consequence with Pluto. That's just what it is. And there's always going to be a consequence with Saturn. Saturn's power says, here's this power that you could have. Here's the power, here's the possibility. Here's the possibility of power. And if you do the work and you make the adjustments and you create the order that's necessary and needed, you can have that power. You can do that. You can have that, but you have to learn how to protect it along the way. Scorpio and Pluto is a little bit different, where again, like, if you really learn how to lean into it, you could grab that power, and it's very like thievery almost, I guess, in that sense. But if we look at it, what's another lens? Because it's not so much in the thievery. It's just like, it's kind of like the Trojan horse, where they put all the people in it and then they sent it through the barrier, and then surprise, that's very Pluto-esque. That's very Plutonian of them to do that. Yeah, that's true, actually. Like, it's the hidden secrets, hidden tactics, hidden strategies, because you have hidden motives and you want something that you're not telling other people about. That's also Pluto. So when it comes to Pluto and Aquarius, there's an order of things that has been on my mind. It's been in the noggin for like a day and a half. It's been in the noggin. Hold on, I need some tea. It's been in there. Just floating around going, when are you going to share me? When are you going to tell people about this? This is such a great idea. It's just been floating, but it's a part of this like bigger thing that's happening. So I wanted to give some other reference information on Pluto and Saturn before. The thing that I've been thinking about, Pluto and Aquarius is literally the power of bringing life. Aquarius is the water bearer. Aquarius is the water bringer, okay? So when you bring water, hello, bringing water. I'm bringing water for myself wherever I go, which actually, thanks Pluto, I really do. I bring a water bottle wherever I go because I know that I need to be able to pour life into myself regardless of if there's a fountain around or if there's cups for water around or if someone else is providing it. I don't need other people to provide for me if I carry my water with me. I know that about myself. I've learned that throughout my life. Also, I'm a thirsty human being. I drink a lot of water, so I carry it with me and I have for a long time. With Pluto and Aquarius, the water bearer, the life bearer, okay, that's where, when I was talking about Pluto, that's where the sneaky under attacks can come through, okay? So if you are pouring water into something, let's talk about an actual physical, spiritual working. Cool. If you are pouring water into the earth, that water cannot be removed. It's like baking a cake. You put the cake in the oven, it comes out a cake instead of batter on the other side. What happens if you put water into the earth? You make mud. The only way to get that water out is through, you can get it out. That's true. You can get it out, but you can't. It's already been done. You know what I mean? It's already been done. The water's already touched the dirt. It's already touched the grass. It's already touched the other plants, the bugs. There's a whole ecosystem. So you put water into the earth. You put water into the land. Love you, land. You put water into the land and You're giving life to the earth. You're feeding the spirits of the earth. And I've been thinking about this because if you put water into the earth and you feed the earth in a very certain sort of energy, or you call to feed very certain sorts of spirits, for me, I'm always going to tell you my three are love, truth, and free. Those are the three for me. Love, truth, and free. Those are the ones that I sit in. That's how I revere the spirits that I need around me. Love, truth, and free. So if I'm doing this, more than likely, those are the spirits I would call on, because those are spirits that I call on normally. That's what I normally do in my practice. For different people, it's going to be different though. And so if you literally were to pour water into the land, you are creating a ward when you do that. What goes into the earth is now warded into the earth. The roots of the trees warded into the earth. If you pour water into the dirt, that water is now warded into the dirt. It becomes mud. So warding is, yes, a little bit more advanced, complex, or complicated of a practice. It's something that I practice all the time, that's true. But what it really comes down to on a very simple level is the structure and order stuff that I talk about when I talk about Saturn. How do you keep things ordered? How are you making sure that there is an order? With warding, there is other very specific tricks of the trade sort of thing, but we're not going to get into much of those or many of those in this. Except for, you pour water into the earth, what you're doing is you're creating a ward. And if you were to do this on a continuous basis, all right, continuous basis, you pour water into the earth just when you feel like it. You pour water into the earth on the new moons. You pour water into the earth on the full moons. You pour water into the earth on certain days when you feel like it's important. And you do so in a specific energy and to feed certain spirits. You have just warded in the growth of that spirit. And you've done it in a way where other people can't take it out. It can't be removed, can't be warded out, except for by nature. Love you, nature. And it's water going into the earth. Talk about incognito as a practice. Talk about can't see me. Now you see me, now you don't. What sort of practice? I will say one of the things, if you're going to do this work, like 100% definitely, 100%, like 1,000%, definitely. If you're going to do this work, give your gratitude, reverence, and love to the indigenous spirits of the land where you are, okay? Wherever you come from, whoever you are, wherever you're standing. Gratitude, reverence, and love to the indigenous spirits of this land, of this earth, where I sit, talk, walk, and stand, and where this water comes from. Thank you for allowing me to offer my hand to the land. Gratitude, reverence, and love to you, the spirits of indigenous that are true. And then you do the work you need to do, okay? Don't walk up on the land and offer to the land or take from the land without also offering your gratitude, reverence, and love to the indigenous spirits of the land, okay? Yes, because if you look like me, if you needed another reason, okay, that should be reason enough. But if you needed another reason and you look like me and you don't give that gratitude, reverence, and love to those spirits, oh, your work just got harder. Not that it was hard in the first place, but your work just got more difficult. You're not necessarily welcome. And those wards, those orders are not necessarily open to you. So do what you need to do. Give your gratitude, reverence, and love also to you and the spirits that you call through. That's true. So that's just note number one. If you're ever doing work with the land, I recommend that you gratitude, reverence, and love. Gratitude, reverence, and love. So that's, first and foremost. Give your gratitude, reverence, and love to the earth. Give your gratitude, reverence, and love to the water, to the air, to the fire, to the elements. You might not be bringing fire into the work, but necessary, as needed. True. The other thing about it too is that what land are you offering it to? Are you offering it to the land that is your house? Do you own that property? Is it technically like legally yours? Are you going onto public land? Because that's going to feed the public spirits also. It'll change the ward. Are you going onto government-owned land? What is the purpose of that land? Because you will be feeding those spirits also. And that's why I say also, feed them specifically. Feed them specifically. Feed them specifically. Because if you call and you just give it to the spirits, spirits who? Spirits who? Do they all support you? Spirits who? Spirits who? Spirits who? Spirits who, dude? Who? Spirits who? So be specific. Be uber super duper specific about if you're calling on the spirits. That's why I have 3 that I call on significantly all the time, because those I know are my grounded love, truth, and free. Love, truth, and free. I know for me, if I call on those 3, then I'm putting in offerings and energy and work into the spirits, love, truth, and free, where I want returns to receive from love, truth, and free. I love, I love truth, and I love free. Thank you. Yes, that's where I would like to be. So that's why I feed those spirits. We have, in my opinion, and I hope this is true, healthy relationships. So be specific, be specific. Don't just go up and feed the spirits. Spirits who? Sounding like an owl. Spirits who? Okay, be specific. And in that specificity too, there could be certain other spirits you call on if you wanted to. Just really think about how it would affect the work and why you're doing it too. I was thinking about this when I was putting this order of an offering or a ritual sort of thing together. I've always, well, not always, but offering water to the land has been something that I've been doing for years now, and I just didn't really ever think of it as a way that could be used as a battle tactic or like a strategy in Magic until the other day, when I recognized like, oh, Pluto's about to be in Aquarius, which means that anything that's done within that sort of order is now binding, whether people want it or not. Whether people agree with it or not, if you walked up on public land and did your thing and put the water in the land, first of all, what are they gonna say to you? Don't pour water here. Okay, well, it's done, so I'm leaving. Secondly, Pluto and Aquarius is a long time. It's 20 years. You do that on a consistent basis. You do that on a continuous basis. You feed your power to those spirits and bind up. Create a binding on a land that is publicly owned and may serve a certain purpose, publicly, structurally, hierarchically, Saturn. And you do that throughout time, Saturn. With Pluto, people, that's the thing about magic. People are influenced by it every single day and don't really even realize it. Think about it like this. People wear perfumes. What do you think when you smell a nice perfume? Oh, that smells so good. It smells so good. Oh my, thank you for, I always thank people in my head when they walk by and they're smelling something good. Thank you for wearing that. It smells delicious. Thank you. Thank you for the scents. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But even that is a form of magic and witchcraft. If you wanted it to be. It doesn't have to be, but it could be. Pluto and Aquarius is also going to be about who do you trust? So that's more of like a physical, actual, literal example about pouring life into the earth and having it feed over time, different sorts of spirits. Beautiful, in my opinion. But if we think about it more in like a symbolic essence, more in a metaphorical way, because that's also part of a spiritual practice, is to create the order. Okay, so if we have this physical order, but then also learn to apply it in different areas, not just in that physical space. So if you now have, say that you're pouring life into someone in your friend group, okay, maybe they're going through a really hard time, they're going through a tough time, they're going through something that's been really, really difficult for them. And you decide that you are gonna pour some love into them. You're gonna pour some life into them. Like, their spirit's been down, so you're gonna give them some love, you're gonna give them some life. And one of the things to look at is, what are they gonna do with the life that you have given to them, with those offerings? What's been done with it? How are they using it? Is it something that you agree with? Do you care to have an agreement on what they do with it? Paying attention to that is going to be important with Pluto and Aquarius, because if you notice that someone is doing something with the life that you pour into them that you wouldn't necessarily agree with, probably a good time to draw a boundary. Or you've now figured out one of those small little triggers. If I give people this and this happens, or they respond in this way, not a person I want to be around. Or you could have good triggers too. If I give people this and this happens and it's something good, and you're like, oh, okay, well, they can stay now. They can stay. They're a person who is safe. They're a person, and you got to figure out those triggers for you and what they mean. Just an example of how that could work or play out. But say that they've been going through a hard time. You're pouring life into them, pouring life into them. So good. Okay. And they're able to get up. What about reciprocation? Also true. What about reciprocation? Maybe you're going through a hard time, and what do you need within that reciprocation? Is there reciprocation? Do you have to ask for it? Does it happen naturally? That's also going to be something to look out for, because Pluto and Aquarius, it's going to be the era of who do you trust? Who do you trust? Who do you trust, and why do you trust them? How much trust do you give to them, and how much trust do people give to you? This is an era where if you are offering trust to someone, it is going to start an exchange. So noticing your triggers for if you trust someone, why you trust someone, where you trust someone, how you trust someone, how much do you trust someone, is going to be really important. Because even I've noticed sometimes I will trust a person, but it's like this hidden underlayer of like, didn't even realize I was trusting them. It just happened because of they made me feel safe, or they made me feel like I could trust them some way, somehow, somewhere. And so being really aware of that, because trust is going to be one of the initiators of exchanges in Pluto and Aquarius, and people could trick you into trusting them. It's like, people get gross. Freaking gross, dude. That's disgusting. Oh, I hate that happens. But it's true, it does. It's so gross. So if you find yourself trusting somebody, why? Why are you trusting them? Keeping track of your trust is important. Trust is going to be probably overly weaponized in this next era. Overly weaponized, overly utilized when it comes to people who want power and are really willing to do kind of whatever it takes to receive that from you, from the group of people that you're with. So just, be on that awareness. Now let's talk about some of the fundamentals of battle and protection magic. First and foremost, don't go into battle if you can't protect yourself. Don't fight somebody if you don't know how to protect yourself. If you throw a punch and you have no idea how to guard yourself, you are getting knocked out. You are getting thrown to the ground. So if you have experience within a practice where you know what protects you, you know the order that you need in your life to protect you, you know what people you need around you to protect you, like, this is another thing to study Saturn with too. It takes time to learn what really truly actually protects you and protects your power and protects your seats of power and protects your valuables and protects how you are valuable and protects your birthrights. There's so many different things in our life where we must protect it, because it is something that we could lose. We have gained it, and that means that it is something that we could go through a loss of. And so learning how to protect those areas, learning how to protect those skills and those gifts and the time that you put into those spaces. Very Saturn ruled as a space, as a thing. But just make sure that you're doing what you need to do. Also, one of the things that I've learned when it comes to battle magic is that if you're casting literally like baneful magic, when people practice like a spell work and they're doing something that is like a protective battle, sort of like they're going after somebody with a spell, that sort of work, all right? That sort of work requires, in my experience, and every practitioner is different, this is just in my experience, okay? That kind of work requires that you personally have everything cleared out of your life that you are going to attack that other person for. So say that they are someone who, this is a very simple example. say that there's someone who was gossiping about you. They spread rumors about you, okay? And those rumors made a really big impact in some way that you don't agree with, and they ended up hurting your reputation, or you were at a loss of some kind because of it. Maybe you lost friends, or like lost a position, lost a job, or just like something. There was cruelty happening and there was gossip happening, and because of that, you were at a loss, okay? So you decide, or a person, okay, this person in this scenario decides that they're gonna go and do some form of like reclamation, redemption, some sort of like attackive battle magic to get back at this person. But at the same time, they've been behind their back talking about how horrible this other person is. And they've been talking about the situation. They've been talking about the other people who are involved in the situation. They've been on the yap train too. Oh. You see how the order on both sides is the same. This person over here who is at a loss because of these rumors that started wouldn't be able to do that protective work, directive work, corrective sometimes work also, battle sort of work. Wouldn't be able to do that work and have it actually work well while they're still yapping about all that stuff. They would need to bring it to order. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to have it be open for discussion. I'm not talking about these people. No, I'm not bringing these people into my conversations anymore. We're not talking about what happened. I'm not going to bring it up in conversation. And if somebody else brings it up in conversation, I'm shutting it down. That's the sort of order that would be necessary. There's probably some other things too, but that's on general level, very, very surface level. That's the order that would be necessary for that person who had their life ruined. I'm going to put air quotes because this is just an example, but had their life ruined by this other person because they were gossiping about them and spreading rumors and lies about them and things like that. So if you have an order that is the same or similar to what it is that you're going after another person for, then that work that you have just done, if you have done it, is also going to come back to reflect what's going on in your life and force you to get it together. That's one of the things to just keep in mind. That it, again, doesn't happen for everybody. That doesn't happen for every sort of work, but with the way that I keep order in my life and the way that things work for me and the way that I work with the spirits in the realms and the different things, just on a personal level, love that for myself. I can't practice that sort of stuff if I don't already have it together. If I don't already have my order together, I don't practice that sort of work. If I don't already have the structures that I need, if I haven't receded from that sort of practice that was going on, retreated, whatever it is, I'm not practicing that sort of work. I will get myself together and I will remove myself from the situation. And normally, and again, this is for me, as someone who is Scorpio and Saturn ruled, which is one of the reasons that I fight with Scorpio and Saturn so often, is because they are chart rulers for me. Because really, any single placement, any placement within the astrological charts could be used as a tool to do so many different things. I just happen to be ruled by Saturn and Pluto. So those are the ones that I know the most about when it comes to our structures of protections and directions and corrections and all that sort of work. So if you wanted to take a look at your chart rulers and kind of figure out, and I say Saturn and Scorpio specifically because Scorpio placements and Saturn influence, both of those are what rule my chart for the most part. There are some other things I have going on in there, but that's pretty much it. So if you wanted to look at what your big rulers are when it comes to your signs, your planets, and like what has the most influence on you, I would recommend doing that, to be honest. Take the time, go and do that. Figure out how you could use those chart rulers, because that's going to be really where your power is. Looking at your Pluto is going to be like your essence of power, because Pluto is literally power, but you're also a human being. And so having all of those different placements coming together to make you, like Pluto might only be, the only thing you might have that is Pluto or Scorpio in your chart might be Pluto. It might only be Pluto and Mars, and they might not have anything to do with Scorpio, other than those signs rule Scorpio. Like it might not be a very strengthened or strong placement in the chart. And so looking at your chart rulers could actually be really helpful for this, and going through and figuring out like what rules the chart, figuring out, you know, how do I start to keep a space where I am protected in that. And if you are protected, so say that you are protected, say that, let's go back to this example of there's somebody chatting, yapping, okay, and there's losses because of it. If you're already protected and you're keeping up on everything that you need to keep up on, and you have your order, you have your protections, you're not yapping about anything, okay, and this person has just done this because they have decided that they're going to, more than likely, and this is again in my experience, it'll be handled for you. The only time that I ever have to interject myself into battle spaces is because I also needed to figure out how I was weaponizing something against myself. There's something I've been doing that actually isn't beneficial for me. There's something I've been doing where, oh, I need to correct this for myself because this isn't actually helping me. This is putting me in danger. I've kept this order and I've done these practices, and this has put me in a place, in a position where I now have created a space of danger. And so having those corrections come to the surface is also really important, because then not only do you learn to protect yourself, but you also learn what other sort of person and actions, because it's not just the entire person. Maybe they're safe for one thing and they're not safe for another thing. That's also Pluto and Aquarius, is understanding what areas of life people are allowed to come into, and understanding where are they regarded as safe, where are they regarded as true, where do you trust them and where do you not. I kind of went over the trust thing earlier, but sometimes people are allowed to see parts of our lives and sometimes people are not allowed to see parts of our lives. It just sort of depends on, you know, who they are and what they have going on and your relationship with them. So keeping that in mind as well. But if you can bring that together for yourself and you can create the order that you need, it's Saturn. Saturn is one of the rulers. We haven't really gone over the Uranus part of Pluto and Aquarius, and I'm not going to for this video. I just wanted to talk about Pluto and Saturn and how it is going to work in our structures of Pluto and Aquarius. We'll probably go over Pluto with Uranus another time, but for this one, it is. I think one of the things that is going to be really interesting about the beginning of Pluto being in Aquarius and not going back into Capricorn, because we've had the back and forth for like a year or two now. So I think one of the interesting things about the start of this is that Saturn, one of the rulers of Aquarius, is also going to be moving on from the end of Pisces. It's going into Aries. And I think it's going to be really interesting how Saturn starting a new rotation, starting a new transit, starting in Aries, it's the beginning. Let there be light. Also, Aries is about the fight. It's about the fight. Aries is about the fight, not all the time, okay? But it's also, Aries is about the birthright. It's about what happens at the very beginning. It is. Aries is very, 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 and I mean very, birthright oriented. This is mine, and it's mine because I was born with it, and you can't take that from me. But with Saturn, let's remember, earn seat of power. I was born to earn the seat of power. That's Saturn in Aries on a very simple level. I was born to earn the seat of power, and that seat of power is mine. No matter who else goes after it, no matter where else they could be. That seat of power is mine, Saturn and Aries. And with Pluto and Aquarius at the same time, we're gonna have all of these people who are like, I was born to have this seat of power, and that is gonna be influencing our friend groups and our social spaces, and like where there's gonna be like a very big social dynamic change in the next year or two, really, while Saturn is in Aries. So more than the next year or two, it's like 2.5, 3 years, but it'll be an interesting flip to see what our social groups change into. This is definitely a time to protect yourself socially, protect yourself with your logic also socially, and just make sure that protection looks different for everybody. Protection for some people means being by themselves. Protection for some people means being in a really big community space. Protection for some people means having a balance between work and hobbies and however else that works for you. So understanding that everyone's life is going to look a little bit different socially in the coming years, and making sure too that there is, in those social spaces, learning how to protect yourself, and when it's necessary to protect the group is also something that is going to be a necessary discernment. And how will that change things? Change is going to be the other kind of like power dynamic when it comes to Pluto being in Aquarius, but that's going to be more about the Uranus portion of it. So I think I'm going to make actually a 2-part series for this. So catch me in part 2 if you want to see about power and change and all that stuff. That's the power of change. Yeah, the power of change. That's true, because we need to talk about social dynamics and how they change when they change, if they need to, and the power of that. Yeah. Cool. So I'll see you there. Gratitude, reverence, and love to you. Keep doing what you need to do. Keep up your brew. Thank you for being on the channel to support, and thank you for your patience as I come back to living like a normal human being and not being sick in my bed. That's also true. And I will talk to you soon. I'll talk to you in the next video. That's true.